Hey guys, this is Rachel with Cypress Textiles, and today we're going to be finishing the Quarter Mandala Square from the Gloria Blanket Crochet Along. And I'm working on our next row. We're going to be decreasing to make this and go ahead and square off. So first we're going to slip stitch into 7 stitches, including the first one. So just go ahead and make your slip stitch. 1, 2, don't make them super tight because they have to lay over the stitches. You don't want it puckering. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's actually 10, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, I said 7, but I meant 10. All right, so you're going to be slip stitching into 10 stitches, the first 10 stitches, and then when you kind of tilt your work forward, you can see that the next stitch is going to be this treble that you have here. So that's when you know you've made enough slip stitches to where your next stitch is this post treble. All right, so into that stitch you're going to work a single crochet and then single in the next stitch as well. Half treble, so insert your hook. You know how to make a half treble, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and work through all 3 loops on your hook. Half double crochet, another half double crochet, okay, and 2 double crochet, 1 in each of the next 2 stitches. So you have 2 single crochet, 2 half double crochet, and 2 double crochet. And you're basically just getting taller as you go, from the slip stitches to the singles, then the half doubles, and then the doubles. All right, so now you're gonna make a chain and then skip 1 and DC in the next stitch. And you're gonna repeat that until your row is almost finished, but not quite. I'll tell you how many to make. So just chain 1, skip 1, DC. Okay, so you're working here until you have 17 double crochet in this section. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So when you have 17, after you start your chain 1, skip 1, DC, 17 of those, that's whenever you've got the right amount. So I'm gonna leave this here so you can see what I mean for a moment. Take a screenshot if you need to. And then I have another chain on my hook after those 17 chain 1, skip 1, DC. I have a chain, and then I'm not going to skip a stitch this time. It preserves the stitch count if you don't skip a stitch. So just straight into this next stitch, we're going to work double crochet in the next stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, half double, and then half double again, and single, and then single. And we are just mirroring the other side. So after the chain 1, skip 1, DC, this is the last of those. We're going to do another chain 1, don't skip 1, DC, DC, half DC, half DC, single, single. All right, so now we're finished with our row, and you're basically leaving 10 stitches unworked here. So when you count them, when you have 10, then you know you have the correct amount skipped at the end. So you're just going to turn. And here's how that row looks from the opposite side. So you can see we're starting to kind of come in to where we can get up to a square at the other corner. All right, so for our next row, we're going to make a slip stitch in all of these first 6 stitches here. So go ahead and make 6 slip stitches, and again, don't make them too tight. And then the first stitch you're going to work into is this chain space. And a super simple row, you're just going to make a single crochet in every space and stitch across. Okay, and you're going to stop when you get to this very last chain space here, and you're leaving all these 6 stitches unworked at the end of the row. All right, so here's my row finished here, and you can see my final single crochet is in this last chain space. I've got these stitches left unworked, and I'm going to go ahead and turn. And now we're going to change color in a little bit of a different way because we need to make a slip stitch in the first stitch here. And I didn't want to have you changing color because I thought it would be obvious that the color doesn't really start right here. So just make a slip stitch in this first single crochet. And then when you're going to go make a slip stitch into the next one, go ahead and insert your hook to make your slip stitch, but bring through your CC2 instead. And it doesn't matter what yarn choice you have, you're using contrast color 2 on this row. So insert your hook like you're going to do a slip stitch, but then grab your CC2 instead and make your slip stitch with it. Okay, so you can see now that the slip stitch looks like it's going to be the tan color, but we're actually going to start working with CC2. That's intentional. All right, so I'm ready to start my row. I don't need to carry over the tan color, so we're going to be working over it. So start with your CC2, and we're going to work over the tail of the CC2 and the working yarn of the main color. So your goal is to make it so your main color ends up at the other side. So we're just going to work over it as opposed to cutting it and then having to weave in a couple of ends extra. So first we're going to make a single crochet in the next stitch, not the same stitch as the slip stitch with CC2, in the next stitch. Okay, so make a single crochet. See how that looks there? Then make a treble. And this is a treble bobble row. So your trebles are going to show up as tiny bobbles on the opposite side. And you're just going to make single crochet, treble crochet across. And making sure to work over your tail until it's finished, and then your main color all the way across. All right, single crochet, treble crochet. Okay, so here's how we're looking from our side, and then when you tilt it forward to look at the back, you've got your treble bobbles there. All right, so I finished making my alternating single crochet, treble crochet. I'll lean it forward to let you see the opposite side has the bobbles. And we're finished with the row whenever we've left behind the single crochet that's right above the final DC from the previous row, and then the single crochet that's in the last chain space. So you're basically leaving the final 2 singles unworked. And that's because on this side, you've made slip stitch in both of those stitches. So you've effectively eliminated these first 2 stitches and the final 2 stitches from the row. And it's very helpful at this stage to check the stitch counts on the written pattern. So I would do that if you're concerned. Okay, so in this first stitch, we're going to make a slip stitch, and then we're going to change back to the main color in the next slip stitch. So just go straight into your treble crochet like you're going to make a slip stitch, but instead you're going to bring through the main color and finish your slip stitch with that color. So bring it through this to make the slip stitch. And then you can cut CC2 at this point. And if you still have your CC1 from over here, you can cut that as well. We're still going to use CC2 for a row up here, but we are not going to use CC1 anymore. And check the written pattern to see for your particular yarn choice where the color changes are going to be. All right, so now we're working with our main color, and you're going to work into the next stitch, not this same slip stitch, but the next one, just like we did for the previous row, with a single crochet. All right, and then you're going to chain 2, and that's going to stand in for the first treble of your round. So this is like beginning treble, single chain 2, just like beginning double is single chain 1. Add an extra chain for the beginning treble. Right now in the next single crochet, we're going to skip all the trebles on this round. In the next single crochet, you're going to make a 2 treble cluster. So yarn over twice, insert your hook into that next single crochet, pull up a loop, and draw the yarn through 2 loops twice. Leave this last loop of your treble crochet behind, yarn over twice, insert the hook in the same stitch, draw up a loop, and pull the yarn through 2 loops twice. Now you have 3 loops on your hook, and when you draw the yarn through all 3 loops, you've completed the 2 treble cluster. All right, so chain 1, 2 treble cluster in the next single crochet. You're skipping over the trebles. Okay, and your repeat here is just chain 1, 2 treble cluster in the next single crochet. All right, all the way across, and then I'll show you how the end looks. There you go. Okay, so we've worked 2 TR cluster, chain 1, skip 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. Okay, and we've got, actually I may back out of that last chain 1. Okay, so 2 TR cluster, chain 1, skip 1, truly 11 times, and then just chain 1, and then 2 TR cluster in the next single crochet. And what you're leaving behind here, you're going to make a treble in the next single crochet, and you're leaving behind the final treble and single. All right, so at the end here you've got 2 TR cluster, treble, and it mirrors the beginning, which is our beginning treble, which counts as a treble, and then a 2 TR cluster. So that's what our row looks like. It looks a little weird right now because the treble stitch looks straight up and this one looks like it's pulling over, but that's okay. Once you have your border, it's gonna look fine. So here's how the row looks so far, and then we're just gonna turn. And our next couple rows are just worked in the main color, so there's only a few rows left on the square. All right, so the first stitch of the next round goes in your first chain space. So you're gonna single crochet in that chain space. This is a super simple row. Chain 2, single crochet in the next chain space, and that's your repeat. Chain 2, single crochet in the next chain space, all the way across. All right, so on this row we have 10 chain spaces and 11 single crochet. All right, just so you figure out how many chain spaces and single crochet you need to have across. Okay, so for the next row, we're gonna make beginning DC in the first chain space. So single crochet, chain 1, just working straight into the chain space. Then make a double crochet in your next chain space. All right, and now you're just going to chain 1, double crochet in your next chain space until you have 2 chain spaces remaining. Chain 1, double crochet in the next chain space, all the way across till there's 2 chain spaces remaining. Okay, so there's 2 chain spaces remaining here. And I have a chain on my hook right now, chain 1, and I'm ready to make a decrease as follows. Just yarn over, insert your hook in the next chain space, pull up a loop, draw the yarn through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, insert the hook in the next chain space, pull up a loop, draw the yarn through 2 loops on the hook, and then draw the yarn through 3 loops on the hook. That makes your decrease. All right, so here's how the row looks. Then we're going to turn. Now for the next row, starting in this chain 1 space here, just go straight into the chain space, skip that first decrease, straight into the chain space with a single crochet, and then just make single crochet in every space and stitch across until you get to that final chain space. All right, so I have 13 singles for that row. You can see I've stopped at my final chain space here. And now we're going to turn, and we're going to change color after a couple slip stitches to CC2. And go back if you're using Metropolis yarn pack or the Whirl. This one's going to be CC1. So just go look at the written pattern to see what color changes notes there are for your yarn pack. So in this first stitch, we're going to make a slip stitch. Slip stitch in the first stitch here. And then we're going to the next stitch like you're going to make a slip stitch, but we're going to change color to CC2 for this color pack. All right, so we're going to pull CC2 through the stitch and change color to it to finish the slip stitch with it. So pull it through there and then pull it through the loop. Now you've made your slip stitch with CC2 to change color to it. Now in the next stitch, not in this slip stitch again, but the next one, you're going to make a beginning double crochet, beginning DC. So single crochet, chain 1. And then we're going to work a double crochet in the next stitch. So that's what we have so far. Beginning DC, double crochet, and then chain 1. Now we're going to make a 3 treble cluster. We're going to skip some stitches here. Skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then in this stitch we're going to work a 3 treble cluster. Okay, remember how to make these from a few rows back. Our first row, I think, actually, second row, 3 treble cluster. And draw the yarn through all 4 of these loops to close your 3 treble cluster. Then chain 2 and work another 3 treble cluster in the same stitch. Okay. And close the 3 treble cluster. Now let's chain 1, skip 2, and decrease as follows. Yarn over, insert the hook in the next stitch, draw up a loop, and pull the yarn through 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over, insert the hook in the next stitch, draw up a loop, pull the yarn through 2 loops on the hook, and then draw the yarn through 3 loops on the hook to close the decrease. All right, so here is how this row looks. And you will notice a couple things here. We're going to go ahead and cut this color, and then you'll notice that we left this color over here. And the reason why we did that is because we're gonna keep on the front side of the work right now. So normally we would turn, but after this row, we're gonna just keep it right side facing and then use our main color to make the next round. So insert your hook into this first chain space here, not the chain space of your beginning DC, the first actual chain 1 space, and grab your main color, pull it through to the front without making your float too tight there. Your float has to lay naturally so it won't pucker. And then make a slip stitch to secure that loop. All right, now we're going to make a beginning DC in that same stitch. So just go straight into the chain space and single crochet, chain 1. And then we're gonna make a 2 DC cluster in the next chain space. 2 DC cluster, chain 2. And we might not have actually made a 2 DC cluster in this pattern before, so let me just show you. Yarn over, insert the hook into the chain space, pull up a loop, draw the yarn through 2 loops on the hook, and then just repeat that. So you make your 2 DC cluster. There you go. So 2 DC cluster, chain 2, 2 DC cluster, all in the same chain space, that center chain space. Now just make a DC in the next chain space, and then your row is done. So you can see how this really got squared off there by decreasing all the stitches that we did at the edge and all the slip stitch. All right, so let's turn. And now we're just working straight into this chain space. Make 3 single crochet. 1, 2, 3. All right, and that finishes the square. So this second single crochet is your corner. So when we turn, our next move is going to be to make our slip stitch round and then our single crochet round of the border. So first, we're just going to start with a slip stitch in the corner. You can mark this slip stitch as your corner stitch if you like. And make sure when you make this slip stitch round, it's super important to make sure you have loose slip stitches. Otherwise, you'll be in a world of hurt on the next round whenever you're trying to squeeze single crochet into those tight little slip stitches. So even if you have to go up another hook size, to make your slip stitches looser, then go ahead and do that. I'm pretty good at making mine loose on my own, so I don't have to do that. But if you do, please do. You won't regret it. You won't regret going up in hook size. All right, so we're gonna make 34 slip stitches evenly across. And you can place a marker in the middle and then, you know, work your 17 slip stitches on either side. You can even do like a stitch marker here, and here, and then chunk it up into fourths. And then you can work, you know, it'll be like 7 or 8 stitches per section. And that's going to get you even more specific to where your slip stitches are evenly spaced. What I do is I just go ahead and get started, and then I start counting and see how many I would have to go to finish. And then I just kind of add a slip stitch here and there to make my 34 slip stitch count. Okay, so let's get started with 1. I'm just going into the stitches, and don't go into these spaces here with a slip stitch. You're gonna go into the actual stitches themselves. So you can see the side of a double crochet has kind of 2 parts to it, this top part and this bottom part. So you'll make a slip stitch in the top part of it, nice and loosely. I even pull up a little bit to make the next one loose. And then in the bottom part, you can make a slip stitch. Okay. You can make 3 slip stitches across this red decrease here. You can make 1 up here, pull up a little so you loosen it, make 1 here. The slip stitch has kind of a propensity to tighten up on you as you make it, so you have to really focus on making it loose. And it's easier on your hands to make it loose as well. Okay, so I'm just going into each little piece as I go with the slip stitch, and I'm just gonna take a step back and count them in a little bit. So just go into every little section that you can, whether it's a chain or whether it's the side of a single crochet, this one, or whether this is a treble. So you have 3 sections of the treble, 1, 2, 3. So you can do 3 slip stitches across that stitch. Let me back that out because I split my yarn. All right, 1. Make sure you're going into the stitch itself. You're never working these slip stitches into a space. Okay, now we're here. So we've got a treble and a single. So we'll just go straight into the treble and straight into the single. Okay, and I'm gonna show you how it's looking so far. So here's how we're looking. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little count. So this would be the marked slip stitch, so I'm not gonna count that one. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So I have 19 so far. So I'm gonna remember that I have 19, and then I'm gonna just pretend like where am I gonna place my slip stitches, right? So I'm gonna remember I have 19, and then we'll say 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. So where you want to end is right before your corner with your 34. So I will have 35 if I make my slip stitches just as I said them just now. So I'm going to have to skip one of the slip stitches that I would have made in order to get my 34 when I get here. So I'm going to make my slip stitches, and where I would have put them, I'm going to not put one of those. So let's see. All right, so I've got my slip stitch here. I counted 1 there, and I counted 1 here, and I'm just gonna skip over the next stitch and do a slip stitch in the next one. And that way, when I get over to the very end, I'll have 34 and not 35. And that is kind of how I do my rows, my slip stitches. Okay, so here you have slip stitches here, and you have your actual stitches. So you're just going to ignore those slip stitches because those slip stitches are kind of just to erase these stitches here. So for the next row. So we're going to work into the actual stitch, not the slip stitch when we make the slip stitch here. So here we go. We're going into the actual single crochet. There we go. and going all the way across. And then I don't have to count anymore because I know I ignored one slip stitch in order to get my 34. So now I know I have 34. All right, and now we're gonna work a slip stitch in the corner. You can mark that slip stitch if you like, just so you know where to make your corner for the next round. And then turn and just rinse and repeat. Do your 34 slip stitches across, and then right before you get to this ring that you made in the very beginning, that's where you're gonna put your final, your corner slip stitch. So you need 34 stitches from here to right here where your last slip stitch is gonna be, but not this corner, because that's gonna be your corner after the 34. All right, so I'm going to pause and go ahead and finish these slip stitches and show you how it looks whenever I'm done. Okay, so here is how the square looks when you've got all of your entire round of slip stitches. And now we're going to make the next round of just single crochet. So in your marked corners, if you've marked them, your corner slip stitches, you'll make 3 single crochet. And then in all of the stitches across, all of the slip stitches, just make 1 single. When you get to the next corner, 3 single crochet. So I'm just going to show you the one that I have finished so you can see how that border round looks when you've made slip stitch round before that. It just looks really neat and pulled together, so you know exactly how many single crochet to make, and it's not messy whenever you make that single crochet round when you have that first slip stitch round. So here is the quarter mandala square from the Gloria Blanket, and I hope you guys enjoyed this square, and I will see you guys for the snowflake square. Bye guys.